Sunday. For those of you in the U.S., happy July 4th. It is July 4th. It is 10:11 a.m. in the morning. And if you were there at my last episode last week on Sunday, or I think I kind of made the announcement a couple Sundays before that I would be doing an episode every single Sunday. So this Sunday, I would like to talk about my process. By the way, I would like to thank Ewok Wrangler for the inspiration for this. He had a very interesting question that he asked me on one of my episodes, and in answering that question, I thought to myself, you know what, I think I should do this because, by the way, I have talked about I have talked about my suggestions on how to leave the body, the things that I would suggest that you do in order to do it. But I don't know that I've ever actually gone into my process, kind of what I do before I leave my body to take me to the point where I get into that in-between space, the space that I tell you about, the space where my vibrational frequency raises. So this is my process, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the first time I did it and what my process was that first time, and I'm going to compare that with how I do it now. What is it that I do currently when I go into that state? And it's funny, before I start this, I I was lying down a little bit earlier and I just almost had an experience, but I took myself out of it. So I was a little frustrated, to be completely honest with you, but that's okay. The video must go on, and even as experienced as I am, and I've told you guys before, there are times when I mess up or I take myself out of it, and these things happen. So first, I'm going to take you back to a time before the internet, the late 70s, a time when my mother and I had come here from the south side of Chicago to Northern California. The person that introduced me to astral projection lived on the other side of the fence from my building in a tiny little house and even smaller room. We were just talking one night and he brought it up. He even talked about how he'd done it and told me that I could do it too. Being how I am, even back then at the age of 9, I was definitely skeptical of what I was hearing. I could not believe that something like this could be possible. Even back then, I remember I believed in Santa Claus, I believed in the Tooth Fairy, but I did not believe that leaving one's body could be possible. However, it was still in the back of my mind that night as I walked home the first time that we had talked about it. It was there, and honestly, it just wouldn't go away. And for those that are struggling with astral projection and leaving your body, I want you to listen carefully to this, because the first time it happened for me, doing this was not in the forefront of my mind. And this is something that I talk about so much, that I think many times that people that are new to this overthink the process. They get into whatever technique they decide to go with, and they're like just thinking about all the little details. What should I be feeling? What should I be thinking in that moment? But I want to tell you that first time, I wasn't really thinking that it was even possible the first time. So that's one of the reasons why I always talk to you about backing away, relaxing, and just letting go. I do remember that my friend who I had spoken about, because I know I don't talk about techniques here all that often, to be honest, because I believe that everyone will find their own technique that really kind of works for them in their imagination. But I will tell you that my friend had said something, and I don't think this was a technique at all. So interesting. Again, I will tell you again that this was 1978, so it was before the internet. I wasn't able to go on and Google and come on to a subreddit and read, what's possible, what isn't, what the different techniques are. I didn't even know. When my friend had told me, he basically said, well, what you want to do is you want to imagine yourself surrounded by a white light. That's what he said. That's all he had told me. Before you leave, you want to imagine yourself surrounded by a white light. That did stick with me, but it was funny because I thought to myself, well, even if this was possible, why would imagining yourself surrounded by a white light make a difference at all? Just in your imagination? That didn't make any sense to me either. Now, I want to take you into my room that first night. And again, this is my process as I was sitting down on the bed. Back then, which I'm sure people are going to find this strange, I listened to KGO News Talk Radio 81. I don't even think it is in existence anymore. But I used to love to listen to talk radio. I think partly because I am an only child, and I really didn't have anyone to talk to back then. So I always felt as if hearing sort of voices in the backdrop, whether they were talking about politics or whatever, it was sort of comforting to me when I was little. So I liked having that on. But again, I know that I'm sure it's strange for some 9-year-old to be listening to talk radio. That night I laid down and I remember I was drifting off into sleep. Again, taking you into that process that night, nothing special really. I was just lying down. I was just relaxing. Again, I will emphasize that even though I didn't think it was possible to leave my body at that point, not really, there was a part of me that was still curious. It was like somewhere in the back of my mind, it was still there in some distant place. And as I drifted off into sleep, that distant place became closer and closer and closer. Suddenly, I think for the first time that I can recall, I reached that middle place. And in that middle place, I imagined myself surrounded by white light. And in that moment, I realized that there was something really wrong because I started feeling this tingling sensation. I want you to think of, I always think of this, I don't know why, but when you do laundry, those of you who use Bounce, that fabric softener that also takes away the static cling or whatever they say, and you feel that tingling or the static electricity, that's what it felt like all throughout my arms, my legs, my entire body. It felt like it was immersed in this static electricity. That's what it felt like to me. And it just got more and more and more intense. It just, to the point where I began to feel myself floating out of my body. It is a very strange sensation, guys. An extremely strange sensation to feel like you are lighter than air. It is the weirdest feeling. I remember being young and feeling that sense. And as I was floating up, of course, for those of you who have listened to that first time, I panicked. I panicked instantly. I was like, what is going on here? I was going up. I hit the ceiling. Thank God I did not go through the ceiling, or else it would have been a lot worse. I flipped around. I started flailing my arms as if I was drowning. And, well, at some point, thankfully, I got pulled back in. But there was a moment I remember where I stopped struggling, and there was a certain peace that was there that was really kind of interesting and amazing. So that was the first time, and that was my process, guys. So now let's contrast that. We're going to go traveling into the future. Actually, we can even go into my last experience, the experience that just happened moments ago, where I wasn't able to complete it to my frustration. But that's okay. I will use this as a tool today to help with this. So my process today, exactly what it is that I do when I do this. So, in my head during the day, I might think of some place that I want to visit, or perhaps some lesson that I want to learn. There was a thing when I wanted to go to Saturn, and I was kind of obsessed with that. And finally, I had a connection with the planet of Saturn. Or I wanted to know more or understand more about unconditional love. These things are in my mind, and I'm thinking, this is what I want to do. So before I even lie down and begin this process of separation, or doing the beyond body or whatever, I have it in my thoughts that this is what I want to do while I'm still conscious. It would be kind of cool to do this. Then I lie down, and my first task when I lie down and I shut my eyes is to get rid of all the stresses and all the worries and all the things that happened during the day the best that I possibly can. So I just lay down with the storm sounds in the background, because I do use storm sounds, and I do my best to let go of all of those things, all the thoughts, all the things like that are filling my head, because I feel that those things interfere with this process. So I do my very best to let those things go. And then I stare out into the darkness of my closed eyelids, and I wait. Perhaps if I'm feeling it, if I feel like I want to add something to this, I'll picture my third eye glowing with a golden light, or I'll picture myself holding a rope on a mountain, waiting to reach that in-between place between being asleep and awake. And as soon as I get there, I let go. Now, again, these things are things that I have come up with, these things that I picture, because it helps me, it assists me in my process. The thing that I always encourage you to do, you out there, is to come up with your own thing that assists you. Be creative. Please, You don't have to stick to the things you might see on subreddit or whatever. You can take those techniques and you can use them. But I would encourage you to come up with your own unique way of doing this. Really, it also helps you to understand that this is you, that you are in control of this situation, and perhaps it will help to take away some of the fear. Once I reach that in between state, I can then astral project, go beyond body, or just connect with spirit beings. My usual things nowadays is to go beyond body, but as you know, I've also spoken to spirit beings as well. Once the choice is made, I'm off on yet another journey. So that's how I do my process. I hope that it does not sound to you to be overly simplistic, because there are times that I will struggle to get into that state, that complete state of relaxation. That does happen, guys. Again, I don't always achieve it. As I just told you, I was there. I was in that in-between state. I felt movement. I felt myself turning. I felt myself go out of my bed, and then I couldn't hold on to it. I think I was feeling a bit distracted. I'm not sure, but that is my process. If you have questions, thoughts, or whatever, I would love to see it in the comments, and I'm there for you guys. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on another journey with me. Thank you for coming to another Sunday. Until next time, take care.